All right, we're gonna approach a move that you may already be super familiar with, a lunge. But we want to take it and fine tune it, tweak a couple of things, make it very specific in a very simple way that will actually affect great change in your body. And that is a Psoas Lunge stretch. We're going to show you from a standing position, we're going to show you from a kneeling position. You have options. Either way, it's going to be highly effective, super simple. You're going to begin to discover ways to get your body to stretch and change very simply. It's going to take a lot of engagement up here, but I hope you're going to love it and it will change your life. Let's go. All right, let's integrate. Let's take all of these things that we've talked about, wrap them into a system in your body. So we talked about first resistance. Any movement that I have you do, anyone, at least with me, my hope is that you can also start to do this in your own fitness, exercise, stretching. But any movements you do with me, I don't ever want you going into pain. I don't even want you going into guarding. I want that to be assigned to you to back off a little bit and to stay in your sweet spot. Your sweet spot is going to be where your neurology adapts the quickest. The cool thing about that, let's say you go through your body, you do the traditional workout, you're getting microfiber tears in your muscle. Your body has to recover from all of that through rest and nutrition. If we are adapting from a neurologic standpoint, where we're not causing rips and tears, your body doesn't have to go through a recovery process to adapt. It just goes through the adaptation phase, which tends to take something in the equivalence of 36 hours to adapt to a next level neurologically if you do different tips and tricks that help keep you in that sweet spot. So the simplest way I can help you find your sweet spot is to listen to that first resistance. The first sign of resistance your body gives you, back up just a hair from there, work and move there. That's where you want to do your stretches, that's where you want to do your exercises. It will change how your body functions. Then we take muscle balancing. We did pelvic tuck. We're going to integrate that into this lunge stretch because it's going to be the thing that locks your pelvis and your anatomy into place to actually get an effective stretch. Most people, when they do their lunge, they're reaching for distance. Lunging, as far as what I'm going to teach you for corrective purposes, is not about distance. It is about getting a result. And our result is going to be getting a stretch in our hip flexors, getting some engagement in these back glute muscles, opening up the lower back, beginning to start to engage the abdomen. The next thing we talked about is fascia. We're going to be putting your knee behind you because we're going to be locking down a chain of fascia going down through your leg that will effectively help to open up and free up fascia from your hip, which is going to begin to migrate that fascia down into your leg where it needs to be, back up into your abdomen, where neurologically is going to help these things stabilize, turn on better. So we're going to integrate all of that into the Psoas Lunge. A little bit of education about the Psoas Lunge. It is an exceptional move. I have found in my own life it has dealt with an extreme amount of back pain. I have found in the lives of my clients this is something that is pretty life-changing. A lot of people think when their lower back's hurting, they need to reach down, touch their toes, stretch the heck out of their hamstrings. In most cases, that's not going to be effective. It will tend to just either keep and sustain your lower back pain, maybe eventually make it worse. In some cases, it will make it better, but very rarely. So I want to give you something that helps more people. The majority of people can use this because the majority of us are sitting or having our hips flexed. We sleep curled up. I know I do, at least with one leg curled up each night. All of those positions are going to shorten your hip flexors. You know, we talked about your joint moving because of muscle shortening, but there's lengthening. When we sit, our hip flexors, one particular called the psoas major, which connects here to our femur, goes through the bowl of our pelvis, connects to our lumbar spine. I'm actually going to break this down for you a little bit more thoroughly because it's so important. So we have our vertebrae, our spine, the little bumps in the back called your spinous processes. If you feel right down the middle, you'll feel bump, 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 bump. Those are called spinous processes. On the sides, we have similar bumps kind of hidden by our muscles called transverse processes. Those are where our psoas major connects to, kind of like fingers from the front. So if you can imagine this muscle coming from my femur, up through my pelvis, up into my lumbar spine, my lower back, connecting to each vertebrae like fingers. If that gets tight, where do you think it's going to pull from when you're standing? Not your legs, because you have to stand on them. So it's going to pull from your lumbar spine forward and down, causing some stress back here. Your lower erector muscles have to lock up to keep you upright. There's a lot of compression and stress that happens there from the hip flexors. So this stretch is going to be the thing that helps to open up those hip flexors, calm down your lower back, give our abs the right position to begin to engage in, to stabilize your spine, which will then affect your entire anatomy. So let's get into this stretch. First disclaimer is that you want to be mindful of what you're stretching when you do this, because you could be stretching the wrong areas and creating more stretch there, and it might not be helping to stabilize your posture and your anatomy. Ideally, we want to pick the areas that are shortened muscles, causing tension on your structures. Those are the ones we want to stretch. We might find for places like the hips, most people I find need to stretch both, but also most people have one that is more constricted that they need more stretch on. And that can change from day to day based on how you sleep. Other areas like lats, for instance, most people have one side that's tight and the other side that's not. So if we end up stretching both, we're stretching one that needs it and stretching one that doesn't need it, we could be exacerbating an imbalance or keeping an imbalance versus trying to alter and balance out the area. So that's all to say, do this in specific areas. We'll be continuing to create content that will show you the areas to do this and create effective change in your body, to align posture, to get out of pain, to put your body in the position where it heals naturally on its own. So today I'm going to do it in the Solas Lunge stretch, because that's a pretty imperative one, pretty foundational for what we do. And I'm going to get into the side pose. So I'm just going to be on both knees, bring one foot up in front of me, 90-degree angle. You can tell I'm still pretty much over, hip over this knee. I don't really want to come into a lunge like most people tend to do, because most people in a lunge will tend to lean forward, not really get the stretch where we need it. It might compromise your back. So stay upright. It might not feel like much, but it's about to. And then from here, we're going to do that pelvic tuck, posterior pelvic tilt like we trained on the floor in video 2. We're going to be tucking our tailbone down, pulling our abdomen up and in. So think about it like a circle rotating, or I think about it like 2 arrows, one pointing down in the back, one pulling up in the front. That position alone should kick some stretch into this front hip psoas area. You may feel it in your quad, that's perfectly fine. As long as we feel it here, great. We don't want to feel it here. If you feel it here, reset, start again. Okay, so I'm here, step number 1. Step number 2, holding this tuck, I want to bring my hip bone forward as far as I can go without untucking. What that does is it enhances that stretch. I feel it. Again, stopping at first resistance. If any area in your body starts to experience or demonstrate stress, chill out, come a little bit out of it until everything feels good. Let that be your start position. So again, tuck, lunge forward, stop at first resistance. So now we're getting into the neuro hacks. The first neuro hack being breath. Now if I'm just here breathing normal, trying to create a stretch, watch me. I'm just going to do a static stretch, leaning my weight into this hip, keeping the tuck, just to see if normal breathing gets me anyway. You may find over time this will get somewhere. Generally for people it takes like 6 months to a year to take that type of static stretch, change their posture in an area, if they're doing it fairly consistent. Watch what happens with one neuro hack in breathing. The type of breath I'd like you to do is a breath that you would feel after a full day and you sit down for the first time and you breathe something like this. Like everything's just relaxing. A neuro signal is going through your body to tell everything to chill out. That's why it feels so good to sit and take that first breath. That's what that's about. So I'm going to actually hack into that. I'm going to utilize it. I'm going to create that breath. And let me show you what it does to my movement. Watch my hip here. So again, I'm tucked. I'm lunged into first resistance. You saw what happened with normal breathing. Now watch what happens with this type of breath. Watch. It's a lot. I'm going to do it again because we can get more. So if you notice, I'm still tucked here in the pelvis. It's still pressing forward here, still minding first resistance, but those 2 breaths, look how far it brought me. An incredible amount. It's an amount that as a personal trainer in my early years, I would have been happy to get that kind of result in 3 to 6 to 12 months in a client that had lower back pain. We just accomplished that in 2 breaths. So that's neurohack number 1. We have about 4 more we can add to add even more benefits. The second one is going to be something called pre-fatigue. So pre-fatigue, I'm come out of that a little bit, rest. If you're doing this at home, rest your body for a minute. You can even walk around. Pre-fatigue is when we take the muscle that's shortened, that's been biting us, that's been pulling our joint towards it, and we put it into a stretch position, and then we put it to use. We engage it. And essentially, we're not allowing it to move or take over the joint. We're resisting it. We're keeping it in a full stretch position, but we're activating it. So it has to use a lot of energy to try to activate. Our goal in that is we're trying to exhaust the energy from it. We're trying to exhaust the glycogen stores in the cells so that we have about a 2-second window where your body tries to start replenishing those cells with glycogen, that it can't actually fight us, so we can actually get into a deeper stretch. So we're going to do the breath. Actually, let's just do the pre-fatigue on its own, then we'll add the breath, and you'll see the benefits of each of these. So I'm going to pelvic tuck, come to first resistance, which is now a little further because of the breath piece we did. I'm going to come up on my toe, which engages some fascia. If this is too much for you, you can still come here. But pre-fatigue for this muscle, in order to engage this muscle, first we have the psoas in a lengthened stretch position. Check number 1. Then we want to engage it there. We want to kick through like we're kicking a soccer ball. We can do that, or we can even try to lift our body off the ground by kicking down into the ground. So I'm going to do that for 10 seconds with a deep in-breath. So now I'm going to go ahead and relax that muscle and then just sink in. What just happened there, that little bit of movement you saw happened because I fatigued this muscle. It can no longer fight me when I go to stretch it. Let's join that with the breath now. So I'm going to pre-fatigue it, breathe in, kick in, and I'm going to add that hacking breath. A lot more movement. Those are just 2 layers of it. We're about to get to some other ones. Go ahead and get up, move around. You're getting a lot of stretch in there. Make sure if you feel anything in the lower back, reset. Okay, third neurohack is we did the breath, we're doing the pre-fatigue. We're going to do the opposing muscle engagement. So when the psoas major, your hip flexors are shortened and pulling the joint towards it, it will actually disengage the glute max. Meaning neurologically it can't really turn on all the way. It has strength potential there. That's why I don't like to call it weak, because I imagine most of you at home actually have strong glutes, so hopefully that's encouraging news. But here's how to neurologically get you to turn on the strength you have that you haven't been able to access. So when we pre-fatigue this opposing muscle, it's going to give us a window that we can actually engage that glute. To engage it, if you have a hard time finding it, poke at it and try to make it clench. And that clenching action helps to extend your hip, which right here is going to look like pushing your hip forward. So we're going to do all those things together. Here, tuck, first resistance, breathe in, pre-fatigue, kicking forward. Now as I breathe out with my out breath, I'm going to actually think about squeezing my glute to push my hip forward, to engage my leg back. So watch this. So now not only am I opening the hip, I'm neurologically hacking into it with my breath. I'm engaging the muscle that should start to support my pelvis being opened. That's 3 levels of it. There are some more I'm going to tease on. I'm not going to super deep into them, but just know that there's some cool other levels you can do in neurohacking. One of them I kind of skipped over. It is the fascial piece. So if I point my toe, there's less fascial engagement. If I flex my toe, this is called Dorsiflex versus Plantar Flexion. If I flex it, I'm going to engage more fascia through this area, which can create more of a stretch. I'm going to have you just treat that hack with whichever one of those feels right to your body. If this puts on too much stress, go to a point. If this isn't doing much for you, go to this way. The last, fifth and final hack that, again, not going to get super into, has to do with your eyes. Our eyes are what steer our movement. So let's say we go to round a corner. We don't just step around a corner generally, we normally look around the corner, which then informs our neck, down our spine, through our hips. Our leg takes a step, we're driving our body. We can hack into that utilizing this position. So let's say we are wanting to get better stretch out of this. We can start to look in a certain direction to open up our movement. Begin to look away, which is going to create more fascial draw in a certain direction. Just a quick little note on how far we're looking to get in the grand scheme of things. Some people are hypermobile. A lot of people like to call it double jointed or like a contortionist. You want to be mindful of how far you move into this because we want to create structural integrity. We want to create muscular strength to hold the joint. But that population is very small compared to the amount of people who just lack ability to move there. So I also want to tell you about how far we're aiming for so that when you get there, you can celebrate and know that you've actually created full range of motion in that part of your body. So for hip extension, depending on how your hips are formed, it tends to be about 25 to 35 degrees of extension. What I mean by that is that this is neutral, knee directly under hip. As we reach back, we're getting into hip extension. So 90 degrees would be straight back, 45 degrees would be halfway there, a little shy of that, or even halfway of that is 25-ish degrees to 35 degrees. So what we're aiming for is something like this. So if I'm getting into this position, and I'm starting at neutral, I do my pelvic tuck, I go forward into my first resistance before I untuck. Right now we're already, let's say like 12 degrees in. I'm gonna take a deep breath. I'm doing all my neuro hacks, pre-fatigue, squeezing, breath. So right about here, I tend to be a bit on the hypermobile side. This is even further than you would want to aim for. Right around here is about full range of motion for this joint. So we're not aiming to get you in the splits here. In fact, if you are trying to figure out how to base flexibility off of, a neutral body, 25, 35 degrees extension is great. If you're looking to improve flexibility for specific reasons, like gymnastics or contortionism or doing the splits, that's a little bit extra. That's outside of the body's normal ranges of motion, and that's perfectly all right. If you're looking just to create neutrality and good posture, the position you just saw me in is pretty ideal. So we're not aiming for much more than that. It's pretty simple to access. So go give it a try it out, be pretty consistent about it. Give it a few minutes a day, see what you can do with your body. I imagine you're gonna find you can do a lot of cool things. Until then, keep on chipping away at it, and we'll see you here in the next video. All right, you've just lunged, and hopefully you've done it very effectively. Felt some crazy good stretching in your hip flexors, maybe taking a little walk around your home, felt your glutes maybe start to kick in, maybe felt a little lighter in your hips. That is all awesome. One huge step towards turning those abs on. In our next video, we hope that you will feel your abs begin to turn on. Everything we've been working towards. And hopefully by now you already noticed that all of this is already beneficial. Abs is just going to be that bonus cherry on top. So quick recap. We have tied all of those videos together. First resistance, muscle balancing, fascia, integration. We've put it all into a Solas Lunge. Basically taken probably what you know about a lunge, tweaked it just a little bit, made it super effective for your body. By now, hopefully you can recognize that what we're giving you here, very specific, very effective. We only want to do the things that work. I don't want to give you stretches or exercises that really aren't going to do much for you. I want to give you things that are really going to enact change in your body, that you can feel it morphing and changing, that things turn on. That is what we're all about here. So our next video, turning on them abs, keep up with everything you've tried, explore the body, turn it on, make it functional, feel pain-free in your movement as you head forward into getting these to turn on and support you.